come and chat. I try and do this with every class to give you a little bit of inspirational rah-rah. So I have been this is my 40th anniversary of working professionally. I've been in this particular field for 30 years, 3 decades. And the reason I bring that up isn't to reveal how old I am, but to let you know that today alone, I realized I was probably incapable of doing a lot of my job, not trained for it, didn't understand it, didn't have the immediate skill sets on tap to be able to address difficult issues. And all the time I've done this, I've been CISO roles in international banking and finance, in insurance and healthcare, in local government, in higher education, a few of those sectors. And I've served on policy committees back in Washington, D.C. related to critical infrastructure defense. I've hosted national conversations with interested parties through the Agora, its reach, to talk about critical issues. And never at any time in my career have I seen a period of time when we've had it so challenging. I can tell you right now that the good guys are losing. Those of us who hold these accountable positions, who are responsible for defending broad network infrastructures, for protecting critical assets, critical functions, we're not being very successful these days. There's this tremendous advantage that adversaries and current technology deployments have over our current practice skills. It's a really interesting situation. It's one that calls into question every day for me what I need to do and how I need to do it better, which makes it fun in a way. And the reason I tell you that isn't to discourage you, but to let you know that maybe brighter minds need to kind of step in the fold, and maybe brighter minds like yours need to take on the challenges and understand them a little bit better. It's fascinating. The thing that startles me the most is the interesting trade-offs that people are making for technology. I come from a generation of people that's very careful about protecting their identity and their privacy. I care very deeply about my privacy. I also do professionally. I'm actually the subject of attacks. People regularly try and open electronic profiles about me on LinkedIn or on Facebook, and we have to go take them down because I have none of those. But people do that to try and track my relationships, because the infrastructure I protect includes a national security research lab. It includes a broad spectrum of research and intellectual property that's quite valuable. It includes the function and services of the University of Washington, which represents a significant engine of economy for the Northwest region. So, also, the University of Washington is a gateway to a whole bunch of other industries and businesses because of its relationship in grants and contracts. So, what has been amazing to me is encountering the root cause of many of the breaches that I'm responsible for investigating, providing forensics on, taking to law enforcement or not, whatever we decide to do with them. I can tell you that much of the root cause is people, just people. You can't patch stupid, and you can't patch against convenience. I can't believe how much people now are willing to trade their privacy for just convenience. Just about every damn app on the smartphone is a trade-off. You know, there's 4 religions now people are signing up for and giving away their privacy to. That's Amazon, Microsoft, Apple, and gosh, I'm missing one. Google. That's it. These technology deployments, these service centers, these electronic connective tissues of your lives that are being promoted and sold to you, come with a heavy, heavy price if you really look at it. And a lot of people are willing to pay that. My problem with the deployment of those tools and the wide acceptance of them is that it has not included a social conversation. Our society hasn't talked about it. If you ever want to do a really interesting research project, if you just want to try out something for fun, for yourself, to educate yourself about today's challenges related to asset protection, specifically data about you, you might want to do a research project on data brokers. People who own data, people who mine data, people who sell data. Have any idea how much money is being made off of your identity every day? You're not getting a penny for it. I've seen an estimate as much as $150 a day of your data is being sold on a marketplace, and you're getting no money out of that, none. Wouldn't it be nice if you could sell your own data? manage your own data, have the resources. I mean, people give plasma, want to give away important information about yourself to the people you want to give it to. These are interesting questions nobody's really talking about a lot, and I encourage people who are really involved with it. I know all of you are probably heavily involved in technology. I see an awful lot of computing technology sitting in front of me. If you're really interested in it, check out that piece of it. And take some of the training you've learned in this class about risk management, consequence management, policies and practice sets, and apply them to yourself, and then figure out how you'd like to project that as a value as a senior leader in an organization representing security and information assurance, how to project it. Might be an interesting exercise for you. I encourage it. The only other thing that I wanted to really stress before I forget is that if you're really interested in getting into this field, I can tell you that experienced security professionals can rely on a zero unemployment rate. If there's budget to spend, I will spend it on people. I don't have enough, never will have enough, never will have enough people. The University of Washington is the third largest employer in the state of Washington, depending on how you count things up, next to Microsoft and Boeing. We have a massive network deployment that goes globally. We have 750,000 authenticated user IDs. We have some 250,000 devices attached to our backbone networks at any given time. Most of them are not owned by the university, but are guest computers like the ones you're operating right now, probably on the wireless system. We have a very unique and interesting collective of personalities that come to this campus, and an interesting set of problems that are caused by us supporting all of that need in terms of what they bring as interest and what we have to deliver as services. That mission is supported by a very small budget piece. Cybersecurity usually represents, in the old days, used to represent about 5% of the IT budget, information technology budget. At the University of Washington, the estimated information technology infrastructure budget is roughly $250 million a year, about $250,000 a year. The university has only one central IT department that represents about $100 million. There's another $250 million in departmental technologies that are spread across the entire university. It has another set of problems too. We have regulation that cause enormous amount of problems for us. Today I had to be in meetings trying to resolve new anticipated cybersecurity laws coming down from the federal government related to access to federal data, enormous burdens. We estimated that one computer, if we needed to fix it to the federal standards that President Obama is likely to ordain, would probably cost between $10,000 to $25,000 to serve by box. It makes some research cost prohibitive. If you only have a $30,000 contract for research grants and you have to be FISMA compliant because you're going to use federal data, and you have to spend $25,000 to certify a computer, maybe it's not possible. There's also an interesting problem with federal regulation related to all of our healthcare. The University of Washington supports the largest deployment in the state of Washington for healthcare services. Several hospitals, the largest regional trauma centers, Harborview is in our purview. I have to worry about that, along with the medical center here at the University of Washington, then Northwest Hospital, Valley General Medical Center, Airlift Northwest, the 5-state helicopter service that flies people around in accidents and recovery. That's all run by the University of Washington. So this enormous eclectic problem requires a big budget to manage from a security standpoint. And I can tell you, I don't have 5% of the IT budget at the University of Washington. So you have to be very creative. One of the nice things I like about hiring people is I try to hire people who are showing passion about their work and are interested in the field, because we need people not just earning money, but really enjoying the problem sets to try and figure them out, because it's very hard to figure out some of these problems that come our way. It's just a real challenge, but it's fun. The other thing that I want you to all know about is what she mentioned, the Agora. I can't do my job without knowing a whole bunch of people. Heck, the last incident I investigated, I called experts from 5 other companies I know, called folks I know back in Washington, D.C. We had lots of phone calls and communications to try and solve just one problem, one investigation. If I didn't have those resources to reach out to, I couldn't do this job. So if you want to be a cybersecurity professional, or if you want to work in the privacy side of that coin, I suggest you really work at building a network. One of the only claims to fame I can make in this industry, because of all the mistakes I've made, but one of the claims to fame that I have is I have probably one of the richest networks in the industry. And the reason that's wonderful for me, and the reason I enjoy having it, is I become an introductory broker to people with problems. I get calls from companies I don't even know about, professionals, who have heard that I might know somebody. And it allows me to connect people. And the payoff for me is I ask if I can be included in solutions and what they're talking about so that I win with that particular exchange. So this next Friday, December 7th, if you don't have any class to go to, or if you'd like to spend some fun time, there's free coffee and pastries involved here. That's another goodie. At 8:30 in the morning, you can come over and get a cup of coffee in the South Ballroom of the Hub, brand new remodeled Hub in the South Ballroom. The Agora is having a meeting, and we have all kinds of interesting people coming in this time. For instance, I believe the freshly elected Washington State Attorney General is going to be there. My office has always had a strong relationship with state attorney generals. We're a state agency after all. So I keep a very strong relationship with the elected officials. He's probably going to be there. We have people flying in from back east who are extraordinarily interesting people from the Defense Department, people from a variety of agencies back there who work very hard trying to understand these issues. I encourage you all to come and start shaking hands and networking. The purpose is to enjoy some presentations, but more importantly, it's to network. Free pastries is high on my list.
To add to that, I know professionals from Amazon are going to be at the Agora meeting.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Yeah, they are. They've been strong participants all along. The Agora subjects, if you want to know, the first presentation will be one by me. That's just the way it's written on the agenda. I'm going to be giving a cyber threat briefing on Iran. I'm not picking on Iran, but because I can pick on any country. Pick one, U.S. I could give a threat briefing on the U.S. As a matter of fact, most of the cyber attacks that arrive at my doorstep come from the United States. So I'm not picking on anybody, but Iran represents a very interesting picture. The Persians are remarkable people. They've got very interesting issues ongoing, and their political and economic interests, whatever they may be, I'm not judging them, but those interests represent themselves on our networks against our assets. And for me to be able to faithfully and properly represent the University of Washington's response interest to an Iranian presence on our network, and this has nothing to do with students and welcomed faculty members from Iran enjoying the services, but traffic that's malicious. I have to figure out how to address it. And the way to do that is to understand the economic, political, and cultural issues and how it manifests itself as maliciousness on our networks. And I'm going to brief on that. It's all open source. None of it's classified, so you'll get arrested if you hear it. Then there's going to be a briefing by a fellow from Sophos Labs, if you know about that antivirus malware company, anti-malware company. Has their main lab up in Vancouver. One of their senior engineers is coming down and going to brief on what they've learned about malware deployment, recent changes, and how it's being used in cybercrime. He's a pretty interesting guy. He's been a regular Agora attendee for some time, and he's very bright. And he's one of those engineers that actually can give a fun presentation. Then we're having a presentation by the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Seattle Police Department and the U.S. Secret Service. Assistant U.S. Attorney Catherine Warma will lead a presentation with 2 Seattle police detectives related to a case they investigated and prosecuted here in the city of Seattle. So I'm very excited about that too. It's another aspect of the stuff. So if you're interested in any of that, if you're interested in meeting some fun people, you're more than welcome to attend. We'd love it. So that's that pitch. And I don't really have much more I want to waste your time with because I know presentations are more important, but I would like you to know that I can answer any questions now if you like, or if you want to ask questions of me later. I'm available to be found in the University of Washington directory, and you can feel free to do that. I've had an interesting experience of late. One of the presentations for this set of classes was I went on Canvas, went out to a larger international
Coursera?
Coursera.
Right,
Canvas is something else we're working on. Coursera. And I've been getting all kinds of emails and questions from international students all around the world. It's quite fascinating. So I'm happy to answer questions when I can. I'm a little slow. If you send me an email, I'm real slow because I get tons of it. I also have real strong filters, but just be persistent. You might want to put Barbara's class, student, and I'll try and respond faithfully. So there you go. Any questions?
So to confirm, for Agora, that was 8:30?
Yeah, the thing starts exactly at 9,
Okay.
but you want to get there a half hour earlier because the Agora group's like it's like a bunch of, it's a herd. They feast quickly on the pastries. You'll lose your chance.
It's a little bit like locusts.
They're like locusts. It's ugly. It's just so watch your fingers, get early, and use your elbows.
That's South Ballroom
Of the hub. We'd like to have you there.
Any questions while we have? Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. So, since the computer security industry is a relatively new branch, and in the past we already had information systems, but we didn't have people who were officially qualified to deal with security. Back then, where would you hire people from? Which departments, which universities, how would you filter them?
For a long time, I hired artists. I was a commercial artist myself, a failed commercial artist. I couldn't make enough money being a commercial artist, so I did two-time jobs. I worked during the day as an artist, and I worked at night in a bank's data center. Did that when I was 22 years old. And the problems in the old data centers, in the old mainframe environments, the old batch processing environments, the old IBM and all those kinds of old mainframe environments were related a lot to fraud and related a lot to a very closed environment that had very specific patterns and processes. And at night, auditors would come in and asked to run audit reports, and I was in charge of the night shift after a while, and so I'd run special reports off of the banking systems to come up with specific reports to companies or people that they were auditing that would reveal potential fraud. And I became very good at spotting patterns, so eventually auditors would have me run fraud. Eventually the bank liked me so much they started training me in fraud analysis and security controls, and I worked up the field. And when I encountered the formal training, which was usually by IBM or the federal government with Orange Book processes, federal government military stuff, it was not helpful. I found it not helpful. So I started writing my own manuals to teach and train people, and I tried to take technologists and teach them, but they were so technology-centric and so interested in programming, they were very logical. They weren't asymmetric in their thinking. They weren't odd in their thinking to understand patterns, visualizations. At any rate, so I started hiring artists back then. As a matter of fact, in the one company I worked for before I left banking, there was 12 of us working in the cybersecurity field, and all of us at one form or another were artists, sculptors, actors, singers, artists. It's a trade craft. It's a craft. It's a skill that you have to have passion for, like an artist would have passion for the canvas, because the problems are just extraordinarily complex. So I hired artists. Then I moved to passionate people, just people who really like solving problems and doing good stuff. And that worked. That worked okay. I've always avoided hiring technology people because they tend to think the solution's a technology solution. It's a people problem. It's a people problem. In order to prevent attacks, now it's not a problem if you want to catch stuff already happened. All of the security tools we have now are all based on stuff that's happened. It catches incoming attacks already underway. It catches viruses that have already been delivered or are being tried to be delivered. It doesn't do anything about prevention and asset control and protection at a reconnaissance level or a pre-attack level. It just doesn't do it. So technologists solve the immediacy of problems that we're already having. The future is figuring out how to prevent it. And that requires a tradecraft, a kind of thinking. And that's what we're doing in my office. We're trying to re-engineer ourselves to think farther up the kill tree of an attack process. Because you can actually gather evidence on reconnaissance. You can gather it's easy. It's very easy to do that. It has to be done artfully, but you can get a lot of indicators farther up. But technologists don't see that. They see bits and bytes of the network and systems. And in summary, I'll tell you that the other first question I ask people, or try to get to ask people about cybersecurity, is I ask them if they would understand a concept of the assumption of breach. In my office, we do not believe we can protect networks or systems anymore at all. It doesn't mean we don't try. It just means it's a futile effort to think you can protect your computer, or your smartphone, or your LinkedIn, or your Facebook page. It's ridiculous to think you can protect it. It isn't ridiculous to try and protect it, to do as much as you can, but what you want to do is base all your operational strategies around stuff that anticipates it failing. So think of the mindset from whence those people would come. This formal training is great. You guys get a lexicon of terms. You guys get traditional practice sets in your minds. You get an introduction to people who are working these issues. You get a sense of risk management. These things are wonderful. These are essentials. Doing the tradecraft requires a real passion and a twisted mind. I don't know if that helps. It's been a real interesting evolution. It's an interesting evolution. And you should know I'm prejudiced about this stuff, and there are other cybersecurity professionals, my colleagues, some of them disagree with me wholeheartedly. I think they're wrong too.
What is the best part of the job and the most challenging part of the job. If you were to do both ends of the spectrum, what you love and what's the challenge, what would you say those are?
The best part is the fun conversations I have with colleagues trying to solve problems. It's just a joy. We get really creative, we really get out there. I admit there's some beer there too. There's some beer and pizza, a lot of beer and pizza, I confess that. We have a lot of fun. It's really a joy to do that, and it's fun to see something work. I recently, some of us made a guess. We do what's called confidence ratings. We made a confidence rating, 1 through 100%, that something would transpire because we could predict it. So I threw in a confidence rating of 70% on a predictor, and it manifested itself within 2 weeks. That was fun. The hard part is the accountability I have. I just helped negotiate with the university's risk management group a new cyber insurance underwriting policy for $10 million. That's like catastrophic insurance for the university. If there's a breach and your names are disclosed, it costs a lot of money to notify you, to anticipate your needs related to that, to investigate that, to respond to the loss of reputation. Those things are very, very expensive. So the university just negotiated an insurance policy for $1 million, $10 million worth of damages potentially. And we could have bigger ones. The problem is, during those conversations, the question is asked, who's accountable? Because the insurance companies want to know, and their underwriters want to know. The answer for the university is me. And there are several people who would push me right out to the front about that. And what's sad about that is, I told you this is a losing proposition right now. So the sad part is I'm afraid, or I worry, that I'm not going to be able to succeed in establishing some really good practices for the university before I get laid off or fired. That's the truth, because I'd be a very easy person to let go if there's a big problem. So that's one of the things I worry about, is that accountability. But the accountability isn't really about me, it's about being successful for the university. Anything else?
Great.
Yeah.
Here. So I was reading online about how University of Washington was going to start banning Twitter use at athletic games, like putting limits on it. How is that possible? I thought this was...
I just hosted the past council meeting. I read that same story. I read about that. At the past council meeting, the athletic department technology people were there, and I didn't have a chance to ask them. I'm kind of curious too. I do not know how they'll filter that.
Because I think they have like their own TV network, so they don't want. I guess they're trying to completely control the information, like North Korea, in their own athletic facilities. It's really out of hand.
Yeah.
People are reading about this.
Yeah, I don't know that story. I don't know that story. Yeah, it sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it?
Yeah, that they were preventing people from using Twitter at athletic.
What was
I'm-
the reason?
Because they created their own TV network, and they don't want people giving away stories and stuff, like fans or students giving away stories. It's like completely outrageous.
What's so contradictory about that? They've never complained about people posting YouTube videos of us beating USC the last field goal and all those other things that are magic moments. For
Yeah, but now they actually own their own TV network.
Oh, yeah.
As opposed, before it was like ABC or ESPN.
Even so, you still probably find information on either of those things, or somewhere.
Yeah. I don't have an answer
How
for
do they
that.
even implement like a Twitter ban at a?
I don't know. Iran. I've been reading about Iran. They're trying to ban all kinds of stuff in their own world, and they're having a hell of a hard time.
Yeah.
And they probably got more skilled people in the athletics department here. So it's a great question. Yeah. I know it seems. I don't know. I don't want to second guess them or badmouth them. That is an odd story. It'd be interesting to find out. I'd like to know how they do it. Anything else?
I think I have one more question. For those of you who are looking to land in this field, do you have any advice for those folks who are looking for work, looking for the next step after you graduate?
Network, and don't be afraid to be passionate about that network. Find value with the people you network with. Find how to be valuable for those people you network with. I can tell you that in my mentoring efforts, however modest they may have been, I've probably helped or seen people I really liked who have tried to network with me, who have networked with me. I think all of them have found jobs. And I know in some of those cases I've helped encourage them at least, and helped make sure they found opportunities. That's what I do. That's one of those passionate things. You have to network. You can't just fill out an app for a job and expect your resume to shine alone. You really do have to network in this field. That'd be a good recommendation. Yeah.
What about certifications then?
Well, that's a really good question. I have CISSP. I have a Certified Information System Security Professional. The certificate, I just talked to them because I owed them money, so I called them up to find out why they were billing me the way they were. There's a question about whether or not they're having value because people are learning how to take the test, just getting it. Currently, they told me they have 425,000 certificates issued through ISC2. 425,000. So the latest certificate that was issued was number 435,000, blah, 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 blah. My certificate number was 4032. I was one of the first 5,000. As a matter of fact, when Hal Tipton started CISSP or ISC2, he asked me if I wanted to be grandfathered in. Don't forget, I've been in it 30 years. And Hal Tipton himself, who's sort of the grandfather of that particular cert, was a colleague of mine. What value has that cert been to me? Early on, it had more value. Now I would weigh it probably the same as somebody who completes this course. You have a lexicon of terms, you understand some domains of issues and responsibilities, I can speak some language to you, and that's helpful. It also shows a degree of commitment. You have to go to continuing education, that kind of stuff. I've had the opportunity to get grandfathered in on 4 additional certs. Because of my seniority, these certification organizations asked me to join them and they'd give me a grandfathered cert. I didn't take any of them because they take maintenance fees and I already pay a lot of money for certifications. So they're marginal but not of less value. Unfortunately, if you want to apply for a job, a lot of companies, especially smaller business, mid-sized business, are putting that down as a requirement. So it's a bit of a sticky thing. I can also tell you that I helped Chris Ewell recently get his doctorate. He's a colleague. He's the CISO for Seattle Children's Hospital. I just worked with him for the last 5 years as he got his doctorate and helped him with his research project. And he and I, the whole time he was getting his PhD, the academic credential, were debating, well, how much value does, and he got a PhD in information assurance. How much more value does he have with that academic credential and his master's in it than, say, the certification? It's an interesting conversation. Each one has pluses. I can also tell you that the academic mind, if it hasn't worked in the security field, has a hard time understanding the problem. Because the academic mind assumes that all problems are equations. All problems have new knowledge that can be created out of the old knowledge. That there is a discipline of practice, a scientific method that allows for the creation of a new bit of knowledge. Which is what the academy is all about. And I completely respect it. When it comes to managing today's current problems with this, some of that applies, but what it might for reverse engineering skills, for development of underwriting equations, limits on your risks, where you would like to set institutional risk, those kinds of things. It doesn't help with the problems I have of making judgment calls about people, because that's, maybe if you've got a degree in sociology or psychology, I don't know. But I would encourage you to get it if you want to get a job. Don't make it your primary thing, and I don't think you need too many. I have 2 I list, and I only have those because I think the institution expects me to have them. Anything else? That's a great question. Okay.
All right, Kurt, thank you very much.
Sure.
So I was doing a little higher math, and we're going to be challenged to